All right, folks, welcome back. So in the last video, we talked a bit about what the point of social distancing is, why it is that we're being asked to engage in this practice. In this video, I want to start talking about some of the reasons that we might have for social distancing, some of the reasons we might have for engaging in this practice of maintaining at least 6 feet of distance between us and other people, of not interacting in larger groups, of wearing masks when we go outside, of washing our hands regularly and vigorously for at least 20 seconds. All of these practices that we're being asked to engage in order to keep the spread down. What reasons do we have? The first set of reasons I want to look at, we're going to call self-regarding reasons. These are reasons that have to do with your own well-being, with what's in your own best interest. And we certainly do have some self-regarding reasons for engaging in social distancing. It does protect us. If we wear masks, if we engage in social distancing, it certainly reduces our risk of infection by this virus and other viruses for that matter, and certainly reduces the risk that we will be significantly, or our lives will be significantly impacted by this virus. But of course it comes with costs, right? You don't get to see your friends, you don't get to go to parties, you don't get to go out and go to the movies or go out and go to a restaurant. You might have some economic losses as a result of it. It's certainly affecting the way you all are receiving your education right now, and it might be to some degree affecting the quality of that education right now. It's certainly causing us to miss out on some things that we really value and enjoy, and so there are costs. And so many might think that the costs are too high. If all I'm doing is trying to protect myself from this virus, well, I'm not that afraid of this virus. The cost is just too high, right? I'm young and healthy, so my risk is rather low, you might think. Well, that's true. Your risk might be rather low, but the impact that the virus has on you long term might be rather significant. We still don't know about that. But let's suppose you're young and healthy, so your risk might be rather low. You might also think that as long as others are engaging in social distancing, especially those most vulnerable populations, those that need the most protection, as long as they're engaging in social distancing, I don't need to. They're keeping my risk down, and they're also protecting themselves, so I don't need to worry about it. We also might think that we need to reach herd immunity. I'm probably not going to get that sick, so I might as well get this virus and increase the chances that we're going to reach herd immunity. But epidemiologists are telling us that the chances of actually reaching herd immunity without a vaccine are pretty low. And if we were to try to reach herd immunity without a vaccine, we'd likely way overshoot and experience a whole lot of excess deaths and pain and suffering as a result of this virus. So that's not a very good reason not to engage in social distancing. But you also might think, hey, we face all kinds of risks all the time, right? We still need to live our lives. You might think that, look, this is just another risk. I take a risk every time I get in a car. I take a risk every time I walk up a flight of steps. I take a risk every flu season. Right? I take risks all the time. This is just another risk. I still need to live my life. Right? So, I'm willing to take on risks. I'm willing to make that decision on my behalf for me that I'm willing to take on risks. And that might make sense if the risk is yours alone. But you're not making a decision just for you. You're making a decision about your behavior, and your behavior is going to affect the well-being of other people. Because social distancing and mask wearing isn't necessarily or primarily about protecting yourself. It's primarily about protecting others. If you are infected and you're asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic, you can still spread this virus. you can still cause harm to others simply by being in close proximity with them. So social distancing and wearing a mask protects them from the virus, protects them from spread that you might cause. And those might be the primary reasons we need to look at for social distancing. So let's call this first set of reasons like that individual other regarding reasons to social distance. It protects your loved ones, right? You may not be worried about yourself, but think about grandma, right? Think about grandpa. Think about your aunts and uncles. Think about those people in your life who are parts of these more vulnerable populations who have pre-existing conditions or are over the age of 65 and are more likely to die from this virus. Don't you want to protect them from it? Well, engaging in social distancing can do that. It can do it rather directly if you don't contract the virus, if you don't get exposed, then you won't risk exposing them. If you do get exposed, you risk exposing your loved ones when you interact with them. And so you should be concerned about that. I've seen my parents once since this pandemic began. We've seen my wife's parents once since this pandemic began. My children have seen their grandparents once since this pandemic began because we are fearful of spreading this virus to them. We are fearful that even though we've been careful and we've been social distancing and we've been wearing masks, that the few interactions that we have are risky and could lead to us spreading the virus to them. So we should think about the effect it's going to have on others. You also should worry about whether you might infect others and they'll infect others who may infect particular others who you care about. They may affect your parents or your grandparents. Right? So you might infect someone who infects someone else who infects someone else who ends up infecting grandma. Right? That's the way viruses spread. Social distancing, if we all engage in it, prevents that kind of spread. And your individual act could help to prevent that kind of spread, or could contribute to prevention of that kind of spread. Let's look at one more set of reasons. It's not just individual other regarding reasons. There are also collective other regarding reasons. There are reasons that have to do with the well-being of the community, the common good, rather than just particular other individuals. So maybe you don't care about grandma and grandpa, or maybe you don't have grandma and grandpa. Maybe there's no one in your life who is particularly vulnerable to this virus. Or maybe no one in your life really cares if they get sick from this virus and they're not practicing, they're not taking the necessary precautions. You might think, so why should I? If they're not worried about it, why should I be worried about it? So you might not have these individual other regarding reasons, or they might not be very strong reasons for you. But there are also these collective other regarding reasons, and these are the ones that have been the subject of most public health messaging. Right? These are the reasons that say, we've got to flatten the curve. We've got to slow the spread of this virus. We want to flatten the curve so that the healthcare system doesn't go over capacity, so that people don't have to be turned away. Which people? Well, not necessarily grandma and grandpa, any people, right? If the healthcare system goes over capacity, if we're not able to provide healthcare to people who need it, that's going to have a significant impact on a lot of people. It's going to have a significant impact on our communities and the structure of our communities. It's going to have a significant economic impact. Yes, social distancing has an economic impact, but so will allowing the virus to run rampant. It will kill jobs left and right. It will cause great pain and suffering that will not be able to be ignored, and will have a large economic impact on its own. So perhaps each of us has to act for the common good. We can't identify any particular individuals who our individual acts protect, but if we all act together, if we can collectively get our act together and act together in engaging in social distancing and mask wearing, we'll protect our community. Some have appealed to a notion of solidarity here, right? We make an intentional choice that binds us in a common cause. We act together as one family, as one community, and foreground this common purpose that we have, this common purpose of trying to protect what we care about together. Our community, our loved ones, our economy, the common good, right? This builds on an empathetic response, right? We all feel empathy toward particular others. We feel empathy toward the particular others that are in our families or circles of friends, but we also have pretty expansive empathy for broad sets of others, right? When we see that a hurricane has struck somewhere, we concern ourselves for the well-being of the people who are in its path. When we see that an earthquake has struck somewhere or that wildfires are raging somewhere, we care about those people. We have an empathetic response. Solidarity builds on that empathetic response. Just think about the harm that's befalling all of these people in your community. We could contribute to the prevention of those harms. And lastly, solidarity recognizes just how deeply interdependent we are on one another. Right? We are not monads out in the universe just bumping into one another. We need one another. We need one another to thrive and survive. Without our community, we are nothing. Right? Without the social interactions and social connections that we have, we are nothing. Many of us are feeling this right now in ways we haven't before in our lives because we've been ripped from our communities. We are deeply interdependent. Your well-being depends on my well-being, and my well-being depends on your well-being. And solidarity asks us to recognize that fact and join together, bind together in a common cause for the common good. So we have these collective other regarding reasons to engage in practices of social distancing, to maintain these practices of social distancing. All right, I'll be back in one more video to talk about some complications with these sorts of reasons.